the local government center known as LGC, and Senate President Peter Bragdon. This story is sort of still evolving. We had a lot of in-depth discussion on this yesterday on my show. We're going to be hearing from the head of the Bureau of Securities Regulation about the hiring process because they oversee it. But aside from all that, I want your opinion, your view on this. As a former senator, I don't really fault, I guess, Peter Bragdon for taking a good-paying job. But should he remain on as Senate President, could there be conflict of interest? Will he have to recuse himself more often than not? Is that good judgment? Your thoughts weighing in on this?
You know, Jack, the institution of the Senate is at a level that I can tell you that when I used to go up there every day, it's a different situation. As the Senate President, everybody comes in to lobby you. There's no question. There's an awful lot of power in that office. Probably, I would say to you,
perhaps more than the governor.
I would say to you it's pretty close. Because you have the ability to place legislation where you want to place it.
Or kill it.
Or talk to your chairman of that committee that what you'd want to see done with it. People can sit there and want to say that doesn't happen. It happens. And I think that it's too bad that, to think that we have and again, it's not an easy job.
Right.
To be a senator, be up there, be the Senate President because you're putting in an awful lot of time
for a few $100 a year, all that time because you're basically running.
You are
probably the most powerful part of state government, but it's basically a volunteer job. I mean, within 100. I mean, come on, it's a citizen.
If you take a look at some of the decisions that are made, and how people say it's not going to influence what's happening at the LGA, I don't know how that can happen.
So, your thoughts? Should he, if he keeps the LGC job, should he stay as Senate President?
I think that's a very difficult position to be in. Very, very difficult.
To do both?
To do both. Impossible.
So your view, if you were a colleague, probably make a decision?
I would certainly be looking for him to make a decision.
Versus stay on as Senate President. Well, the other thing I'm a little bit in the dark on, and you could enlighten us, Mayor Ted Gatsas joining us on New Hampshire Today, is this LGC. Most people in the public are unaware what this body is. It's a quasi-public-private body that deals with municipalities. There was a flap in the news. People might remember a few months ago there's a lawsuit pending that a lot of cities and towns say that the LGC owes them, $50 million? What is the LGC?
Well, I mean, it was a group that was put together to offer health insurance, workers' comp for the communities throughout the state. Also gives you opinions. If you call and ask, you get membership. The city of Manchester was a member at the time, and most of the decisions that
came. So it doesn't deal with retirement; it's more to offer health insurance stuff to cities and towns.
Correct. Okay. The actual product.
The product. Okay.
So the city of Manchester was a member of it. The problem I saw was that most of the decisions really were leaning towards the small towns and not the big cities. I think that we have the ability, based on the folks that represent us in Concord, that we can get to them. And we've been very successful to have that conversation with our state's reps and state senators. So at that time, we stepped out. So it is a body that has an awful lot of influence on the towns.
Yeah. Now, you have a business background. You serve in the state Senate. You're mayor. I know you respect. You just went through a hiring process for a superintendent because you're head of the school board as mayor, correct?
Correct.
And you went through such a process that you had to actually do it again. I mean, you just hired a superintendent. You seem very pleased, I believe, with her.
She does a great job.
And that was a big national search, right?
It was.
As well as New Hampshire. That was a arduous, lengthy, open process, correct? There were hearings, there were meetings.
There was a committee that was put together. They did a great job. There were 3 finalists that came forward. The board met with them. There was no agreement that any of the first 3 candidates could do the job.
I mean, it was almost in the news, the search process. It was so open. Here's my question. I'm not saying you know the answer to this. We're going to find out at 8:30 or shortly after. This group, the LGC, is overseen statewide, I believe, by the Bureau of Securities Regulation, which is overseen by the Secretary of State's office. So there is some state oversight. This sort of came out of left field, the hiring of the state Senate president for this job, $180,000 a year job, an executive salary by most measurements, probably comparable to your superintendent salary, right?
It's a little more.
Okay, well, not far off. So it's a executive level salary for chief executive in New Hampshire. I didn't read or hear about these big open. I don't know if they did. Maybe they did a national search, but all of a sudden it was announced it was the Senate president got the job beginning of this week, and I don't think a lot of people knew about it. Am I right?
I can't tell you that. I know that George Balls was there as an interim.
Right.
That was the last thing I heard of anybody being in that position, and then.
But you haven't heard. You didn't hear of like a big open search process.
Not that I would, but
yeah.
no, I didn't.
Yeah, I didn't either.